I'm Sam Otten, and with me is Jason Book, artist of the Me and Him comic strip. Hey, Jason.
Hey, Sam. How you doing?
Doing pretty well. You can find that daily comic strip, or I should say 5 times a week comic strip, Me and Him, at meandhim. What is the address on that, Jason?
It's meandhimcomic.tumblr.com.
All right, awesome. Bookmark that one. That's some semi-autobiographical stuff that Jason's putting out there. But in this video, we're going to be talking about the Batman comic book, issue number 44, written by Scott Snyder and Brian Azzarello, with art by Jock. And this is kind of a one-shot. It was billed as the backstory of Mr. Bloom, and Mr. Bloom is the new villain that just came in issue 43, came in kind of in a big way with the showdown with the Penguin at the end of the last issue. I would say that was not really a very accurate billing, because this really isn't a backstory of Mr. Bloom. I would say this is just kind of a self-contained one-shot that has Mr. Bloom appearing in it. But for what it was, I actually really enjoyed it. It was kind of like a detective story. It was kind of like back to some grassroots of Batman. You got Batman doing detective work. You've got Commissioner Gordon also there in the trench coat rather than in the robot bat suit.
Yeah.
So if people have been looking for a little bit of a breath of fresh air of the old kind of classic Batman, this is a nice one-shot that does that for you. What did you think of it, Jason?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I'm a fan of Azzarello as well. I could totally tell that, I bet you Snyder had the story and then Azzarello did a lot of the dialogue, because it kind of has that crime feel that he had on some of his Batman work before, and 100 Bullets as well. Very streetwise. I like the dialogue. I love the art by Jock. Jock is like kind of like a Bill Sienkiewicz style, kind of almost a messier style, but it doesn't look sloppy. It's very cinematic and well done. Like the story. And I like how it tied things from the Batman mythos into what was happening to this character in there, that he was trying to find out, how this person died. It was very cool. And the bit of Mr. Bloom was nice and interesting, but it was really kind of like a bonus feature. It really wasn't the meat of the story.
I really liked the style. I'm not as familiar with Jock as maybe you are, but I liked what he did with it. I thought it fit the story. Some really cool just images of Batman, in certain positions or coming down, and he had kind of this angular style where the lines of the body are not always kind of curved. He'll sometimes put like these kind of angular things in it.
Yeah.
But I thought it looked really good. It fit with the feel, and the coloration that was done matched with it really well. And I liked the overlaying of the newspaper clippings.
Yeah.
Because it really showed that Batman was doing this like street level detective work of kind of doing these interviews and following up on the leads.
Totally.
But he also did this kind of like informational detective work of having to know the area, know the history, know what was going on in the neighborhood. Yeah. And I think the newspaper clippings strewn throughout, they looked cool. They gave it a cool visual style, but it also tied in all the kind of detective aspects that Bruce and Batman have to take on.
Totally.
But yeah, so Scott Snyder with the story, there's a little bit of a connection to Mr. Bloom of the kid who ended up getting killed had one of those pills from Mr. Bloom, and so that kind of figures into the story. So there was that connection, and Penguin is here too. So like we just left off the Penguin in issue 43, and Penguin plays a role, but really he's just one of the leads, and Batman moves on from him and realizes Penguin wasn't really behind it. This was a little bit of an extended issue, got a few extra pages, and that allowed Batman to kind of follow up a few extra false leads, or to kind of realize, it wasn't what he first thought, it wasn't what he second thought, it wasn't even what he third thought, it was like the fourth thing where he finally realized the full story of what had happened.
Yeah, I think like more comics should do this more often, Superman, other books, because it's self-contained, and it's, for the $5, it's something that you'll read years from now if you don't feel like reading a whole arc, and it totally works well on its own, right?
Yeah, and it starts, the structure of it was really well structured, and you're probably right with Scott Snyder kind of laying out that structure and then Brian Azzarello taking it from there. But it was structured well. With right away we meet this kid. Yeah. We're drawn in, just like Batman is, and of course Batman has kind of a soft spot for anything that's, with somebody underage or, a youth. So there's kind of this mystery of like, oh, he's shot, but he didn't die from the bullets. He died from falling. And that ends up, I think, just tying up really nicely at the end with what the actual explanation is for why that would be.
Yeah, should we say what it was or no? Because it's pretty cool if you're a Batman fan.
All right, I think now that we've given people a chance to pause or skip ahead, I think we can say.
Yeah, like it ends up being that it was mixed with something from the Kirk Langstrom serum that turned him into Man-Bat. So I love little nuggets like that in a Batman story, because it's all cool to have new characters and villains, but if you can do something that ties back and it doesn't feel like they're really pulling on that continuity string in an original way, it was very cool.
And the fact that he fell, he
Yeah.
wasn't actually pushed out, or he wasn't really murdered in the way that we kind of thought that he was going to be.
Yeah, it made it for like a really cool detective story that way. And I'll also let you know, if you did like the art of Jock, he did a whole arc with Scott Snyder before he took over the Batman title on Detective. I think it was called Black Mirror. Very cool. I think it was when Dick Grayson was Batman, so you might want to check that out.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that on my list. I did like his style for sure.
Nice.
So yeah, some other nice moments. I thought the interaction with Penguin and Batman having kind of a Penguin showdown, hanging him in that cage like a bird, kind of poetic there.
The only part with that, I was wondering, was he actually letting him dangle like off of a roof and just left him there? Because that seemed almost a little too far for Batman if he was actually going to fall to his death, right?
Yeah, so he has the bird seed and has the birds kind of pecking on the rope,
Yeah.
but I assumed that off screen, or like where we didn't see it in a panel, I assumed that once Batman got the information, he actually like took him down or something.
Yeah, for sure.
But they didn't show that, and the ropes were getting pretty frayed, so I don't know exactly.
It's a cool moment.
What do you think of the cape kung fu, where he's kind of using the cape as part of his weapon in that fight scene?
I love that. That reminds me of in the original movie they did stuff like that, the Michael Keaton one. I love that. When Batman's using his gadgets and whatnot, it's great as long as it doesn't go too far. So I like that the cape has some purpose, because if you actually were thinking about, being a superhero, writing a comic about a vigilante, the cape could really get in its way. So it needs to serve a purpose to kind of justify its existence sometime, I think.
Yeah. Now, we were talking about the Superman title, and actually it's Action Comics primarily that has gotten into a little bit of the issue of police brutality. And Action Comics with Greg Pak took on the issue of kind of when there's demonstrations, and then the police will sometimes use excessive force in handling the demonstration.
Right.
This one got more on the police possible excessive use of force with black youth, and they got pretty close to that. They basically went right into that issue, that societal issue here, talking about the police officers knowing that the criminals and the people that are in that part of the city are well armed, and so the cops feel like they need to be ready to shoot, but then they end up a lot of times shooting a lot of the young black kids. That came up really, really directly in this issue.
Totally. I think anytime you can take something that you're creating as a piece of art, even if it's something fantastical like a comic book or a sci-fi movie or anything, and you can reflect it back to what really goes on in the world and kind of make a comment on it, I think that's a great thing. It's nice to see a street level Batman story that deals with a lot of things like this, because they used to do this a lot more before everything was concerned about arcs and selling trades and things like that. I remember in the 80s growing up, every once in a while you'd have an issue like that where it was like some kid OD'd and fell to his death or something like that. And these things happen every day. So if Batman's supposed to be kind of a skewed mirror of a real New York City or something, why not have things like that in it?
And I thought they did a good job of not making it overly simplified. So the kid who got shot by the police officer, he was an innocent kid who was actually just coming and, he had burned the building, but he was not any danger to the police officer or anything like that. And he actually was, a good character. But it would be oversimplified to say that, a cop just killed an innocent black kid, because there were other people around that same part of the city who were criminals and who probably were threats to the police officers.
Totally.
It's just that the police officer happened to overreact with one of the innocent ones.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there. And that's what makes it an interesting story. We've seen him punch the Joker in the face a million times, but this is the kind of thing where Batman kind of can do things about it, but sometimes you can't be everywhere at once, Yeah.
So yeah, overall a nice one-shot, and if you know people who are into comics and that are looking for a kind of a classic feeling Batman story, this is a nice one that's got a start, a beginning, middle, and an end. It wraps up in one issue, and it has Bruce as Batman doing that detective work. So one that I enjoyed, and so now kind of next month we'll pick back up with, I think, the main story arc with Mr. Bloom.
Yeah, totally looking forward to that. This was just a nice change of pace, and with how much comics cost these days as well, it's really nice to see something you could just buy or give to somebody and just have a nice done in one.
All right, so Jason, anything to look forward to with me and him?
Oh, yeah, with comic strip guys. So basically, I'm putting that out 5 days a week. Not necessarily in any certain days of the week, but if you're into fanboy stuff, I'm always going to have things in there. The basic premise is it's me and myself as a 10-year-old, and we get separated, and he's kind of here to put my life back on track, and just reflects back on all the kind of things that I see every day, and a lot of fanboy stuff. So if you're fans of comic books and Star Wars and all that, you should check it out.
Yeah, it's nice that your younger self came around just in time for episode 7.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. Lots of good story ideas coming up for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for talking with me about this issue.
Hey, thanks, Sam. Anytime.